I sat at Mom's birthday dinner, the smell of cake and candles filling the room. My sister Melissa sat across from me, her eyes glued to her phone. The whole family was there, laughing and passing plates, but I felt small, like I didn't belong. I couldn't wait to share my big news. I'd saved enough money for my own apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. "I'm getting my own place," I said, smiling wide. Melissa didn't even look up. "Renting?" she asked, her voice cold. "Yeah, it's in a nice area and..." "Cute," she cut me off. "I'm buying a condo next week. Perks of finishing college, I guess." The table went quiet. Mom tried to talk about the cake, but Melissa kept going. "You could have had a real job if you'd stayed in school," she said, her words sharp. "That's what happens to college dropouts. Some people just aren't made for success." My face burned. Everyone stared, and I wanted to disappear. I swallowed hard, holding back tears, while Melissa bragged about her fancy job at Bright Path. I stayed quiet, picking at my food. That night, alone in my room, I checked my email. My heart sank. The small tech company I worked for was sold, and I was laid off. I read the words over and over, feeling crushed. No job, no money, and Melissa's voice still echoing in my head. But then, another email caught my eye. It was from Bright Path, the same company Melissa worked for. The CEO wanted to meet me, just me. And the name? An old professor from my college days, before I left school to help Mom when Dad got sick. Why would a CEO want to meet me? I didn't know, but my gut told me something big was coming. Have you ever been judged by someone who should have supported you? What would you do if life gave you a chance to prove them wrong? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious to know. Also, let me know where you're listening from. If you're hooked, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. When I was a kid, I thought I was broken. Words on a page danced like they were mocking me. Letters flipped, sentences blurred, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep up. My teachers didn't get it. "You're just not trying," they'd say, their voices sharp with frustration. "Stop being lazy." Lazy? I spent hours staring at homework, my head pounding, while my classmates breezed through. I was 8 years old, and I already felt like I was failing at life. Home wasn't much easier. My sister, Melissa, was everything I wasn't. She brought home perfect report cards, her name always at the top of the class list. My parents didn't say it, but I saw it in their eyes. Melissa was their pride. Her academic trophies lined the living room shelf, gleaming under the light. My art projects? They got stuffed in a drawer. Once I spent days painting a picture of our dog, Max, for Mom's birthday. I was so proud of it. But when I showed it to her, she smiled quickly and said, "That's nice, honey," before turning to Melissa's new math award. "Look at this, another first place." I tucked my painting away and didn't show them another one. Melissa knew she was the favorite. She'd tease me when no one was listening. "Maybe if you studied harder, you wouldn't be so slow," she'd say, her voice sweet but cutting. I'd bite my lip and stay quiet. What could I say? She was right, wasn't she? She was the smart one. Then something amazing happened. When I was 18, I got a letter from State University. Accepted. Me, the girl who could barely read a paragraph without a headache. I'd worked so hard, staying up late to memorize textbooks, teaching myself tricks to make the words stay still. When I told my parents, their faces lit up. For the first time, they looked at me like I was enough. Dad hugged me and said, "I knew you could do it." Mom cried. I felt like I was floating. "Melissa?" She just raised an eyebrow. "Wow, I guess they really do take everyone these days," she said, laughing like it was a joke. My stomach twisted, but I pushed it down. This was my moment. I wasn't going to let her ruin it. For a year and a half, college was my world. I loved my classes, even if they were hard. I was proving I could do it. Then, in the middle of my second year, everything fell apart. Mom called me one night, her voice shaking. "Your dad had a stroke. He's in the hospital." I caught the next bus home, my heart racing. When I got there, Dad was in a bed, tubes everywhere, his strong hands lying still. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. I called Melissa. "You need to come home," I told her. "Dad needs us." She sighed. "I have exams. They're really important. I'll come when I can." She visited twice that semester, always rushing back to campus for something urgent. I stayed. Someone had to help Mom with the bills, the hospital visits, the cooking. I made a choice, the hardest one of my life. I dropped out of college. Can you remember a time when you sacrificed something important for family? Maybe you gave up a dream, a plan, or just a moment for someone you love? What did that feel like? The next few years were a blur of work. Mornings at a coffee shop, nights waiting tables. My hands smelled like dish soap. My feet ached, but I kept going. Dad needed me. Mom needed me. At 1 a.m., when the house was quiet, I'd sit at our old computer, watching YouTube videos on coding and computer skills. I didn't know if it would lead anywhere, but it was something I could do for me. Something to keep me from feeling like I was disappearing. Melissa? She graduated with honors, of course, landed a fancy job at a big company called Brightpath. Her visits were rare, always quick. She'd hug Mom, pat Dad's hand, and leave, talking about her busy life. I'd watch her go, my chest tight. She was living the life I'd dreamed of, while I was stuck pouring coffee and wiping tables. How would you feel watching someone take the easy path while you struggled with the hard one? Would it burn, or would you just keep pushing forward? I kept pushing. I didn't know it then, but those late nights teaching myself, those years of showing up when no one else would, they were building something. Something bigger than Melissa's trophies, or her fancy job. Something that would change everything. Melissa's life looked perfect from the outside. After college, she graduated with honors perspective, her diploma framed on our living room wall for everyone to see. Right away, she landed a job at Brightpath, a big company with a shiny office downtown. Every day, her social media lit up with posts about her success. Photos of her at fancy work events, captions about chasing dreams and making it big. I'd scroll through her posts late at night, my eyes heavy from a double shift. Her life was a highlight reel. Mine? Just surviving. Family gatherings turned into the Melissa show. She'd walk in, all confidence, talking about her latest work project or how her boss loved her ideas. Mom would beam, saying, "She works so hard." Dad, still recovering from his stroke, would nod quietly. I'd sit there, stirring my food, feeling like a guest in my own family. Melissa soaked it up, steering every conversation back to her. Once, I tried mentioning a new recipe I'd learned for Dad's favorite soup. Before I could finish, Melissa cut in with a story about her team's big presentation. Mom clapped like it was a performance. I stopped talking. My parents didn't mean to pick sides, but it happened. Mom's eyes sparkled when Melissa spoke, like she was the sun. With me, she'd ask about my coffee shop job, then change the subject fast. Dad was different. He and I had a quiet bond from the years I spent caring for him. We'd watch old westerns together, him chuckling at the same scenes every time. He'd squeeze my hand and say, "You're my rock." Those moments kept me going, but even Dad couldn't balance Mom's favoritism. It stung, watching her lift Melissa up while I felt invisible. Why do you think family members sometimes fail to stand up for each other? Have you seen someone favored while another was overlooked? Then, something shifted for me. After years of teaching myself computer skills on that creaky old laptop, I landed a job at a small tech startup. The pay wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time, I was using what I'd learned, fixing bugs, building simple programs. My coworkers didn't care that I didn't have a degree. They valued my work. I made friends, real ones, who'd grab lunch with me and laugh at my dumb jokes. I started saving money, bit by bit, dreaming of my own place. For once, I felt like I was building something, not just scraping by. Last month we had a family dinner for Mom's birthday. I was buzzing with news. I'd saved enough for a deposit on a small apartment, a a big step for me. I couldn't wait to share it. The table was set with Mom's favorite blue tablecloth, candles flickering. Dad was having a good day, smiling as we sang "Happy Birthday." Melissa was there, scrolling her phone, barely joining in. When we finished, I took a deep breath. "I have some news," I said, my voice shaky but excited. "I'm getting my own place. It's a 1-bedroom in a decent area and Melissa didn't even look up. "Oh, renting?" Her tone was flat, like my news was a speck of dust. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my smile. "It's small, but it's a start and—" "That's cute," she interrupted, finally glancing at me. "I'm closing on my condo next week. 2 bedrooms, great view. Perks of a real career, I guess." She leaned back, sipping her wine, like she'd just won something. My cheeks burned. Mom jumped in, asking Melissa about the condo's layout. Dad reached for my hand under the table, but it didn't help. I wanted to disappear. Melissa wasn't done, though. As we cleared plates, she turned to me, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You could have had a career too, you know," she said. "If you'd stuck with college. But that's what happens to dropouts. Some people just aren't built for success." The room went quiet. Her words hit like a slap. I stood there, holding a stack of plates, my throat tight. Tears pricked my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not in front of her. Mom looked down at her napkin. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. No one said a word to defend me. The silence was worse than Melissa's cruelty. It said I wasn't worth standing up for. "Have you encountered people who measure your worth by your credentials rather than your character? How did it make you feel when someone dismissed your hard work?" I left the dinner early, my heart heavy. Later that night, alone in my room, I checked my email to distract myself. There was a new message from work. My startup had been bought out by a bigger company. Most of us were losing our jobs, including me. My stomach dropped. But then I read the last line. The new owners wanted to meet with me personally next week. I didn't know why, and I was too drained to hope. I closed my laptop and stared at the ceiling, Melissa's words echoing in my head. Some people just aren't built for success. I'd prove her wrong someday. I just didn't know how close that day was. I sat on my bed, the glow of my laptop screen burning my eyes. It was late. The house quiet except for the faint clink of dishes downstairs. My family was still celebrating Mom's birthday, Melissa's voice carrying as she bragged about her condo. I couldn't stay down there after her words at dinner, those cruel words about dropouts like me never succeeding. I opened my email to escape, but what I found was worse. A new message from my boss at the tech startup. The subject line stopped my heart. Important update. Company acquisition. I clicked it, my hands shaky. The email was short, cold. Dear team, our startup has been acquired by a larger firm. Effective immediately, most positions, including yours, are terminated. We thank you for your service. A severance package will be provided. One employee has been requested for a personal meeting with the acquiring company's CEO next week. Affected individuals will be contacted separately. My breath caught. Fired? Just like that? I reread the email, hoping I'd misunderstood. Rent was due in 2 weeks. I had bills, groceries, and Mom still needed help with Dad's medical costs. Panic clawed at my chest. How was I supposed to pay for my new apartment now? The deposit I'd been so proud of at dinner felt like a cruel joke. I closed my laptop and curled up on my bed, tears spilling out. Downstairs, laughter floated up, Melissa's voice loudest. They were celebrating while my world was falling apart. I cried into my pillow, muffling the sound so no one would hear. What would go through your mind if you suddenly lost your job with bills piling up? Would you feel like the ground was gone beneath you? Then another email pinged. I almost ignored it, too numb to care. But the sender's name caught my eye. Dr. Thomas Wilson, CEO. The subject, request for meeting. I opened it, confused. Dear narrator, I'd like to meet with you personally next week to discuss a potential opportunity. Please confirm your availability for Monday at 10 a.m. at Brightpath headquarters. Regards, Dr. Thomas Wilson. Bright Path? Melissa's company? My head spun. Why would their CEO want to meet me? I didn't trust it. Was this a mistake? A prank? I grabbed my phone and searched Dr. Thomas Wilson Bright Path. The first result showed his photo. A kind face, gray hair, glasses. My heart skipped. I knew him. He was my professor at State University, the one who'd praised my coding project before I dropped out. He told me I had potential, even when I felt like a fraud. But why me? Why now? I shut my phone off, suspicious. Maybe it was pity. Or worse, some kind of trick. That week was the longest of my life. I applied to dozens of jobs, coffee shops, retail, anything. Rejection emails piled up, or worse, silence. My savings wouldn't last long. I stopped answering Mom's calls. I couldn't handle her asking about my little job or Melissa chiming in with her smug advice. She'd love this, wouldn't she? Proof I was the failure she always said I was. I started picturing the worst. Moving back home, sleeping in my old room, admitting I couldn't make it. Melissa's words from dinner echoed in my head. Some people just aren't built for success. Maybe she was right. I barely left my room. Meals were instant noodles or nothing. Sleep didn't come easy. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts heavy. I felt like I was drowning, and no one could see me struggling. How do you find strength when it feels like life keeps knocking you down? Where do you turn when everything goes wrong? Then, on Friday night, my phone rang. It was Dad. I almost didn't pick up, but his name on the screen made my heart ache. "Hey, kiddo," he said, his voice soft but steady. "You haven't been yourself. What's going on?" I tried to brush it off, but Dad wouldn't let me. "Talk to me," he said. So I did. I told him about the layoff, the bills, the fear I'd let everyone down. My voice cracked, but I kept going. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You've always been the strong one. You carried us when I was sick, when we needed you most. This job? It's not you. You're more than that. Keep going, okay? I believe in you." I hung up, tears on my cheeks, but they weren't all sad. Dad's words were a lifeline. I didn't know what Monday's meeting would bring, but for the first time that week, I felt a flicker of hope. Something was coming. I could feel it. Monday morning, I stood outside Bright Path's headquarters, my stomach in knots. The building was all glass and steel, towering over the city like it belonged to another world. I smoothed my borrowed blazer, feeling out of place in my scuffed shoes. My palms were sweaty as I clutched the email printout from Dr. Wilson. A personal meeting with the CEO? It still didn't feel real. I took a deep breath and walked inside, my heart pounding. The lobby was huge, with marble floors and a fountain bubbling in the corner. A security guard at the desk looked me up and down, his eyes narrowing. "Name and purpose?" he asked, like I was lost. I handed him my ID and the email. "I'm here to see Dr. Thomas Wilson," I said, my voice barely steady. He raised an eyebrow, checking his computer. "You're on the list," he said, sounding surprised. "Wait here." I stood awkwardly, feeling like everyone was staring. Then I saw her, Melissa. She was across the lobby, talking to a group of employees, her laugh loud and confident. She didn't notice me, too busy holding court. Her suit was sharp, her hair perfect, like she owned the place. My chest tightened. What if this meeting was a mistake? What if she saw me and laughed? Before I could duck, a woman in a badge appeared. "Follow me," she said, leading me to an elevator. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Melissa, oblivious. The elevator climbed to the top floor, and my nerves got worse. Employees in the hallway glanced at me, curious. I kept my eyes down, gripping my bag like a lifeline. The woman knocked on a heavy wooden door. "Dr. Wilson, your 10 a.m. is here," a warm voice called. "Come in." She opened the door, and there he was, Dr. Thomas Wilson, my old professor, sitting behind a big desk. His gray hair was thinner, but his smile was the same, kind and steady. I froze, Suddenly 19 again, back in his classroom. He stood and shook my hand. "It's good to see you," he said like we'd just met yesterday. "Sit, please." I sat, my hands fidgeting. "I'm sorry," he said before I could speak. "Back at State, I should have seen you were struggling. I didn't know about your dyslexia until later. I wish I'd helped more." His words caught me off guard. No one had ever apologized for that. I mumbled, "It's okay," but he shook his head. "No, it's not. But I kept an eye on you. Your work at that startup? I followed it. You taught yourself coding, built programs others couldn't. That's why you're here." I blinked, confused. "Why am I here exactly?" He leaned forward, his eyes bright. "I want you to lead a new division at BrightPath. Your approach at the startup, solving problems, thinking differently, it's what we need. You'd be running a team, reporting to me. It's a big role, several levels above most managers here." He paused, then added, "Including your sister's department." My mouth went dry. Melissa's department? I thought of her in the lobby, so sure of herself. "There were issues in her area," Dr. Wilson said carefully. "Ethical problems. We had to let some people go. I won't say more now, but we need fresh leadership. You're it." I stared at him, my mind racing. Lead a division? Me? The college dropout? "I don't have a degree," I said, my voice small. "I'm not qualified." Dr. Wilson smiled and slid a folder across the desk. "Open it." Inside were screenshots of my startup projects, code I'd written, apps I'd helped build. "I compiled this," he said. "Your work speaks for itself. Degrees or paper. You have skill, grit, heart. That's what I want. Have you ever had someone believe in you when you didn't believe in yourself? How did it change the way you saw your own worth?" I looked at the folder, my hands trembling. Part of me wanted to run. This was too big, too fast. What if I failed? Everyone, Melissa, Mom, maybe even Dad, would say they knew I couldn't do it. But then, I thought of the years I'd fought, the late nights learning, the double shifts, the way I'd carried my family when no one else would. Dr. Wilson saw something in me. Maybe it was time I saw it too. Would you take a job you weren't sure you could handle if it meant proving doubters wrong? Could you step into a role that scared you to show what you're made of? I closed the folder and met his eyes. "I'll do it," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Dr. Wilson grinned. "Good. Welcome to BrightPath. You start next week." He stood, shaking my hand again, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Melissa had no idea what was coming. Neither did I. Not really. But I was ready to find out. My first day at BrightPath felt like stepping into a new life. I walked through the glass doors, my new heels clicking on the marble floor. No scuffed shoes this time. I'd bought a sharp blazer and slacks, my hair pulled back neatly. I wasn't the nervous dropout anymore. I was an executive, leading a new division. My office waited on the top floor, with a view of the city skyline. I stood there for a moment, taking it in. A week ago, I was crying over a layoff email. Now, I had a key card, a desk, a purpose. But nerves still buzzed under my skin. My team was waiting in the conference room, 12 people, all older, all with degrees. I could feel their eyes on me as I walked in, my folder of notes clutched tight. "Good morning," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm your new director." A few nodded, others just stared, arms crossed. One guy in the back whispered something, and his neighbor smirked. They didn't trust me. Why would they? I was a nobody with no diploma, hand-picked by the CEO. I took a breath and started the meeting, explaining my vision for our projects. Some warmed up by the end, but I knew I had to prove myself. That afternoon, Dr. Wilson gave me access to company files to review my division's history. I settled into my office, the hum of the air conditioning keeping me company. I opened the first folder, expecting boring reports. Instead, I found something that made my stomach drop. The files weren't just about my team, They included records from Melissa's department. My sister's name was everywhere, tied to projects, presentations, awards. But as I dug deeper, the truth hit me like a punch. Melissa hadn't earned her shine. She'd taken credit for her team's work, slapping her name on reports others wrote. Emails showed her bullying subordinates, sharp, mean messages demanding they fix their mistakes or stay in their lane. One employee had complained about her to HR, only to be transferred. Worse, I found charts where Melissa had tweaked numbers to make her department look better. Sales figures inflated, errors hidden. It wasn't sloppy work, it was deliberate. My perfect sister, the golden child, was cheating her way to the top. How would you handle discovering someone close to you was behaving unethically at work? Would you confront them, report them, or stay quiet? I leaned back in my chair, my heart heavy. Melissa's face at Mom's birthday dinner flashed in my mind, her smug smile as she called me a failure. I'd spent years feeling less than her, but now I saw the truth. She wasn't better, she was just louder about it. I printed the files and locked them in my drawer. I wasn't sure what to do yet, but I knew this changed everything. The more I learned about BrightPath, the more I saw the problem wasn't just Melissa. The company had a toxic heartbeat. People with fancy degrees got promotions, while others like me were ignored, no matter how hard they worked. I met a coder in my division, Lisa, who'd built half the company's app, but was passed over for a raise because she didn't have a master's. Another employee, Mark, had great ideas, but stayed quiet in meetings. His manager only listened to credentialed voices. The hierarchy was rigid, choking out new ideas. Teams competed instead of collaborated, and mistakes were buried to save face. No wonder Melissa thrived here. This place rewarded her kind of ambition. I couldn't let it stay this way. I booked a meeting with Dr. Wilson to share what I'd found. He listened quietly as I laid out the files, not just Melissa's actions, but the bigger issues. The company's stuck, I told him. Good people are overlooked. Creativity is dying. We need to change how things work, or we'll keep losing talent. He nodded, his eyes thoughtful. What's your plan? He asked. I'd been thinking about it all week. First, we need fair promotions, I said. Judge people by their work, not their diplomas. Lisa and Mark deserve better. I suggested a system where managers reviewed results, code written, projects delivered, not resumes. Next, I proposed anonymous reporting for problems like bullying or faked data. People are scared to speak up, I said. This would protect them. Finally, I pitched a team-focused approach. No more solo credit like Melissa's. Rewards would go to groups, encouraging everyone to share ideas. Dr. Wilson smiled. This is bold, he said. Let's do it. Start with your division, and we'll roll it out company-wide. Would you change a broken system gradually, or tear it down completely? How would you balance fixing what's wrong without breaking what works? I left his office feeling lighter, stronger. My plan would shake things up. Melissa's tricks wouldn't survive in a place that valued real work. She'd have to stand on her own merit, and I wasn't sure she could. Part of me felt guilty. She was my sister, after all. But then I remembered her words at dinner, the way she'd cut me down in front of everyone. This wasn't about settling scores. It was about building something better, for me, for Lisa, for everyone BrightPath had ignored. Back in my office, I looked out at the city lights. My team didn't trust me yet, but they would. The company didn't see me as a leader yet, but they would. Melissa thought I was nothing, but she was about to learn how wrong she was. I opened my laptop and started drafting the new promotion guidelines. This was my chance to change everything, not just for me, but for anyone who'd ever been told they weren't enough. The conference room buzzed with tension. Every team at BrightPath was there, packed shoulder to shoulder, waiting for the big announcement. I stood at the podium, my notes steady in my hands, but my heart raced. This was it, my first company-wide meeting as the new division leader. I scanned the crowd. Faces I didn't know stared back, some curious, some skeptical. Then I saw her, Melissa, in the third row, scrolling her phone, oblivious. She hadn't noticed me yet. I cleared my throat, and the room went quiet. "Good morning," I said, my voice louder than I expected. Heads turned. Melissa's eyes snapped up, and her jaw dropped. For a split second, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her phone slipped to her lap. I held her gaze, then looked away, focusing on the crowd. "I'm your new director," I said. "Today, we're changing how BrightPath works." I outlined the new structure. Fair promotions based on work, not degrees. Anonymous reporting for problems. Rewards for teams, not individuals. Whispers rippled through the room. I paused, then locked eyes with Melissa again. "All violations of our ethics policies will be addressed, no exceptions." Her face went pale. She knew I wasn't just talking about policy. The meeting ended, and people filed out, murmuring. Melissa stayed glued to her seat, staring at me like she couldn't believe it. I gathered my notes and headed to my office, my pulse still racing. I'd just closed the door when it flew open. Melissa stormed in, her face red, her voice sharp. "What kind of joke is this?" she hissed. "You? Running a division? You don't even have a degree. How did you trick Wilson into this?" I stayed calm, sitting at my desk. "No tricks," I said. "Just work." I pulled the folder from my locked drawer, the one with her emails, faked reports, and complaints against her. I slid it across the desk. "You should read this." She froze, her eyes darting to the folder. She opened it, her hands shaking as she scanned the pages. Evidence of her taking credit for others' work, bullying her team, tweaking data to look good. Her breathing got shallow. This is nothing," she stammered. "You're twisting it." "It's not twisted," I said, my voice steady. "It's proof. You cheated, Melissa. You hurt people to get ahead." She slammed the folder shut, her eyes blazing. "You think you're better than me? I'll call Mom and Dad. I'll tell them you're trying to ruin me. You'll destroy our family." Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. I'd spent years swallowing her jabs. Not anymore. What would you say to someone who dismissed your abilities for years but now needs your mercy? Would you let their past words echo or find new ones? I leaned forward, keeping my voice even. "You have two choices," I said. "Resign quietly. I'll write you a recommendation, and you can start fresh somewhere else. Or stay, and face a formal investigation. That means HR, reviews, maybe getting fired. Your call." Melissa's face twisted, like she couldn't process it. She'd always been the one in control, the one who won. Now, I held the power. She laughed, but it was brittle. "You're bluffing," she said. "This is just you being petty because I'm successful, and you're... you." She pointed at me, her finger shaking. "You've always been jealous. That's why you're doing this." I didn't bite. I just watched her, waiting. Her confidence cracked. She paced, her voice rising. "Okay, fine. Maybe I pushed some people, but they were lazy. I had to make the numbers look good. You don't get how hard it is." Then she stopped, her shoulders slumping. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Please," she said, tears in her eyes. "Don't do this. Mom and Dad will never forgive you." I'm their daughter too. She was trying to pull me back to the old days, when I'd stay quiet to keep the peace. I thought of Dad's call, his words. "You've always been the strong one." I wasn't that silent girl anymore. Is it better to show compassion or enforce consequences when someone has wronged you repeatedly? Where's the line between mercy and justice? Melissa sank into the chair, her hands covering her face. "I've always been jealous of you," she said, so soft I almost missed it. "You connect with people so easily. Dad loves you more. Even Mom, deep down, knows you're the one who shows up. I had to be perfect to keep up." Her words hit me hard. Jealous? Of me? All those years I thought she was untouchable. Now she was falling apart, and part of me wanted to hug her. But I couldn't forget the truth. Her cruelty at Mom's birthday, her years of putting me down, the team she'd hurt. "I'm not doing this to hurt you," I said. But you made choices. Now you face them. I pushed a pen and paper toward her. Write your resignation, or I start the investigation tomorrow. She stared at the paper, tears dripping onto her lap. For the first time, she looked small, not larger than life. She picked up the pen, her hand trembling, and started writing. I watched, my heart heavy but sure. This wasn't about winning. It was about doing what was right. For me, for Bright Path, for everyone Melissa had stepped on. She finished, shoved the paper at me, and stood. You'll regret this, she said, but her voice was hollow. She walked out, the door clicking shut behind her. I sat there, alone, the weight of the moment settling in. I'd faced my sister, my fear, my past. Whatever came next, I was ready. Melissa chose to resign. I watched her walk into HR for her exit interview, her shoulders slumped, her usual confidence gone. I stood by the window in my office, the city skyline stretching out below. Part of me wanted to feel victorious. She'd called me a failure, and now she was leaving. But as she spoke to the HR manager, admitting to taking credit for others' work and fudging numbers, my heart ached. She was my sister, not a stranger. When she finished, she grabbed her box of belongings and left the building, her head down. I pressed my hand to the glass, torn between relief and sadness. She'd built her throne on lies, but watching it crumble didn't feel as good as I'd thought. Bright Path started changing fast under my leadership. I worked with Dr. Wilson to hire people based on what they could do, not what degrees they had. We brought in coders, designers, and thinkers who'd been overlooked elsewhere. One new hire, a single mom named Tara, had taught herself programming while working nights as a cashier. Her ideas sparked a new app that boosted our sales. My team, once skeptical, started trusting me. Meetings buzzed with energy. People shared ideas freely, knowing they'd be heard. I set up open door hours, letting anyone pitch solutions, no matter their title. The board noticed. At the quarterly review, they praised our division's growth, calling it a model for the company. I sat at the table, my chest swelling. This was what I'd fought for. But home was messier. A week after Melissa left Bright Path, we had Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's. The air felt heavy as we sat around the table, roast chicken and mashed potatoes untouched. Mom kept glancing at Melissa, who stared at her plate. Dad tried to lighten the mood, joking about his favorite westerns, but it fell flat. Finally, Mom spoke. Melissa told us you got her fired, she said, her voice sharp. What happened? My stomach twisted. I looked at Melissa, waiting for her to own it. She didn't. She set me up, Melissa said, her eyes flashing. I was doing fine at work, and she came in, acting all high and mighty, digging up old emails to make me look bad. Her voice shook, painting herself as the victim. Mom gasped, her hand on Melissa's arm. Dad frowned, looking at me. I set my fork down, my hand steady despite the anger rising. That's not true, I said, my voice calm but firm. Melissa made choices. She took credit for work that wasn't hers, bullied her team, lied about numbers. I gave her a chance to leave quietly. She chose to. Mom's eyes widened. Melissa's face turned red. You're lying, she snapped, but her voice cracked. I held her gaze, unflinching. I've spent my life being compared to you, I said. Every grade, every trophy, she worked so hard from Mom. You called me a failure at your birthday, right in front of everyone. Now you know how it feels to fall short. The table went silent. Dad reached for my hand, his grip warm. Mom looked away, her lips tight. Would you be able to forgive family who only respected you after you gained power? Could you let go of years of hurt, even if they never saw you before? Time passed, and something shifted. Melissa found a new job, a lower-level role at a smaller company. She wasn't the star anymore, but she was working. One evening, she texted me, asking to meet for coffee. I almost said no, but curiosity won. We sat at a quiet cafe, steam rising from our mugs. She looked different, tired, humbler. "I need to say something," she said, her voice soft. "I never saw how hard you worked. Not when you left college for Dad, not when you taught yourself coding. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw honesty there, not a performance. I didn't know what to say. Her apology didn't erase the years of pain, her cruel words at Mom's birthday, the way she'd made me feel small, but it was a start. "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. "I don't want to fight anymore." She nodded, tears in her eyes. We didn't hug or make big promises. It was just coffee, just words. But it felt like the first step toward something better. Maybe respect, maybe even understanding. How important is it to repair broken relationships, even when you've been the one wronged? Do you rebuild, or do you walk away? Back at Brightpath, I kept pushing. My division grew, and the company adopted our model: fair hires, open ideas, real results. Lisa, the coder who'd been ignored, got promoted to lead her own team. Tara's app went viral, earning her a bonus. I walked the halls, no longer the dropout who didn't belong. I was the leader who'd changed things. At home, Mom started asking about my work, really listening. Dad's pride never wavered. Melissa and I weren't close, not yet, but we talked sometimes, small steps toward healing. I stood in my office one evening, the city lights glowing outside. I thought of the girl who'd cried over a layoff email, who'd felt less than her sister for so long. She was still part of me, but I wasn't her anymore. I'd built something real, not just at Brightpath, but in myself. Melissa's words at that dinner, "Some people aren't built for success," didn't define me. I'd proved her wrong, not with anger, but with work, heart, and time. Whatever came next, I was ready. 1 year later, I stood taller, not just in my office, but in my life. Brightpath wasn't the same company anymore, and neither was I. Our division won an award for hiring people based on skills, not degrees. The ceremony was small, but when I accepted the plaque, my team cheered loud enough to shake the room. I'd also faced my past head-on, getting tested for dyslexia. The diagnosis was a relief. Words never danced because I was lazy. My brain just worked differently. With new tools, like text-to-speech software, I read reports faster, my confidence growing. I wasn't broken, I was me, and that was enough. My relationship with Melissa changed too. We weren't best friends, but the sharp edges of our rivalry dulled. She'd started over at her new job, working hard without shortcuts. Sometimes she'd text me about a tough day, and I'd reply with encouragement, not judgment. Last Christmas, she surprised me. At Mom and Dad's, she handed me a wrapped gift, a framed article about Brightpath's award, my name in bold. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice quiet but real. I hugged her, the first time in years. Mom and Dad watched, their eyes soft. They saw us both now, not just her trophies or my sacrifices. We were daughters, equal, at last. I learned what success really means. It's not about fancy titles or outshining someone else. It's about showing up, pushing through, and proving yourself, to yourself. I used to think Melissa's life was the goal, her perfect grades and big job. But her world was built on paper, not heart. True success was in my late nights learning code, my choice to care for Dad, my fight to make Brightpath fairer. And it was in lifting others. I promoted Lisa, the coder who'd been ignored, and watched Tara's app change the company. Their wins felt as good as mine. What does true success mean to you beyond titles and money? Is it in what you build, who you help, or something else entirely? One moment brought it all full circle. I sat in my office interviewing a new candidate. Her name was Aisha, young, nervous, her resume thin. No degree, just a list of projects she'd taught herself. Her eyes darted around, like she expected me to send her away. I recognized that look. It was me, years ago, feeling small. She showed me her portfolio, apps she'd coded from scratch. They were rough but clever, full of potential. I leaned forward, smiling. Tell me how you learned this, I said. Her face lit up as she talked, her nerves fading. I listened, seeing the spark Dr. Wilson once saw in me. When she finished, I closed her file. You're hired, I said. Her jaw dropped. Really? But I don't have... I cut her off. You have what matters. Work hard, and you'll go far here. She grinned, tears in her eyes, and thanked me 3 times before leaving. I sat back, my chest warm. I'd been Aisha once, counted out, dismissed. Dr. Wilson gave me a chance, and now I was passing it on. Life had turned in the best way, not with a crown, but with a purpose. How has overcoming someone's low expectations of you shaped who you are today? Did it make you stronger, kinder, or something more? I looked out my window, the city glowing below. Melissa's words from that painful dinner. Some people aren't built for success. Were gone, replaced by my own truth. I was built for this, not because I won, but because I never stopped trying. Aisha would get her shot, and so would others. That was my story now, building a place where everyone could shine.